Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about the Kershaw Whirlwind. Now, I believe this was the first Kershaw I ever purchased. I think I got this before I got the Leak. I don't have my Leak anymore. I actually sold it to my friend Skull. I may pick up a Leak again someday because the Leak is a nice little knife, even though it's the way it's designed. I think it's a little slick in the hand. I felt that it wasn't really all that secure in your hand when you had a pair of gloves on. But this is the Whirlwind, and I believe it's the first Kershaw I ever owned, and I know that it's the first assisted opening knife I ever owned. So we have a single position pocket clip, which again it's tip down, which is not my preference. I prefer tip up. We have closed construction, and the closed construction is actually quite interesting. I don't know if you can see that part lines right there. So this scale here goes up about 3/4 of an inch, and then goes that way, and then goes that way. So it's not split down the middle. It's an asymmetric. There's more of plastic scale on this side than on that side. I think that was an interesting design feature. I don't know why they did it, but it's interesting. So here you go. It has a nice positive action. It pops out quite nicely, and that's a very attractive blade shape. I'll freely admit it's a really nice blade shape. I like the holes too, I have to admit. They're superfluous, but I still think they're kind of cool. You have a nice swedge. Everything here is nicely contoured and radiused. It's very comfortable. The tip is a nice shape. This is just a beautiful overall shape. Now you see how the light plays on that? This is hollow ground, but it's not just hollow ground straight. Someone didn't just take this and run it along the thing. This hollow grinding actually matches the curve of the blade, which is a nice touch. If you run you can't do this, but it has a nice three-dimensional feature to it. And there's a secondary edge down here. It's hollow ground, but it's a secondary edge down here. There is so it's the liner lock, of course. You got again nice solid 50% lockup, no play at all. Again, it's a closed construction. The liners have not been skeletonized. There is some jimping on the liner lock, but it's not aggressive, and you don't end up with any hot spots. There is a torsion bar in here. It is assisted opening, but it's not too difficult to close with a single hand, as you just saw. And again, it has a nice quick pop when it comes out of the sheath, when it comes out of the handle. So, do I like this blade? Well, there's the problem. I like the way it opens. I like the blade shape. It came out of the box really sharp. It's still very sharp. Oh, sorry, I forgot to give you the picture of the logo on that side, and then you've got Kai U.S. patent number on that side as well. So there you go. But this handle is a problem. It's nicely shaped. It's contoured in 3 dimensions, which is nice. It feels good as far as the general overall way it fills your palm, but there's no protection here from slipping onto that blade. And while there is some jimping here on the blade, I feel that if you move forward on this, you're gonna have a very good chance of putting your finger onto that edge. The other problem is it feels very cheap. This feels like cheap plastic. It also is incredibly slick. I'm just in my bare hands, I don't feel that this is a comfortable, safe grip because of how slick this handle material is. If I put gloves on at work, or say if I have just my tactical gloves, which I use as a pair of light duty winter gloves, I would not feel safe with this in my hand. I really wouldn't. And it's the reason I don't carry it. Now, there is one thing. There's only one fastener here on this end. You got the pivot here, which I never had to adjust. Pivot just fine. But this is an incredibly complex. You see that? To get this off, you'd put a screwdriver across that, and it would just hold on those little tiny slots. And on this side, see how that made? It's the weirdest Chicago bolt I have ever seen. And I think it's far too complex. Why did they build something this complex for this knife? It makes no sense to me. What also makes no sense to me is how much these things cost. You go online, I've seen prices in the $70 to $75 range for these things. And that's nutty. With this cheap handle construction, yes, it's a Ken Onion design. Yes, it's overall got some nice lines. But the handle's cheap. It's too slick. Single position pocket clip. To my mind, this is just not of the quality that some of the later Kershaw blades came up to. And while it definitely has a Ken Onion feel to it, I don't think the blade's safe to carry because this is just not deep enough. I need something to keep my finger from coming on the blade. Now, if this was a flipper, if you get rid of the thumb studge and you made this a flipper so that the blade came down, so that the blade would function as a choil and a guard to keep my finger from getting onto that edge, I would feel much safer. And I don't think it would ruin the aesthetics of the blade at all. But as it is, I like the design. I'm glad I own it, but I'm not going to carry it, and I don't think it's safe, which is a pity because it's a pretty knife. But you can't win everything, right? Kershaw has come up with some awesome designs over the years, and you can't always have a winner. And I just can't figure out why this particular knife is so expensive. I cannot fathom it. Does this have the code on here anywhere? I thought it did. Yeah, 1560. Yeah, it's 1560. It's right above. It's right on that line right there. It's a little difficult to read right between the two biggest holes. But 1560, in case you want to look up the model. I just can't figure out why it's so expensive. What the drive is to own this. Is it because it was one of the first Ken Onion designs put out by Kershaw, maybe? I don't know. I'm not going to be selling my copy. But it's a pretty knife, and I'm glad I own it. But I think that this was just a poorly executed handle. I really do, and I don't think the knife is safe because of the lack of protection from getting your fingers onto that edge. Because it's just so slick. This is just so smooth and so slippery. I just do not like this design. Even with this texture here, I just don't think it's safe. But that's just my opinion. So this has been the Kershaw Whirlwind.